How am I doing time-wise? Do I have time to read another piece?
Yeah, sure, why not?
You're saying back there I'm running long, or I should roll with it?
Roll with it.
You're good, Garrick.
I'm good, okay. This is a slightly longer piece I'm going to read, and then we're going to take a few questions and answers, and then I'm going to sign as many books as you can have me sign. And I want to read this piece because it relates both to the Rainbow Gatherings and the social ideas that the Living Theater and most of us have in our various ways stood for. The 1982 Rainbow Gathering was the rainiest ever. Unbelievable. 6 days into a continuous downpour, you could hear voices chime out from under tarpaulins and inside cramped tents. They've seeded the clouds, and when are we going to start building our ark? The mud was ankle deep everywhere. At night, it was shivering cold. Families huddled together, and in the short breaks in the torrent, everyone went out collecting wet firewood. My teepee had 20-plus people lodging in it. The terrain provided a narrow loop road that came up one side of the mountain and curved around to the gathering entrance, then winding its way back down to the other side. So we planned to use a one-way route to avoid traffic facing itself on the mountainous road. Well, one stretch of the road got so soggy it just washed out and slid down the mountainside, leaving a gaping, impassable hole. The remaining half of the loop would have to serve for both up and down traffic. It was a muddy mess. Cars, trucks, even buses got stuck. The word from the front gate crew was passed through the camp, and about 50 people, myself included, went off to help with traffic and movement of people up and down the mountain. We brought gear and tents to maintain way stations along the road. John Buffalo figured it out. He organized a baton system so whole caravans could leave town, all the vehicles traveling along more or less together, helping each other if one got stuck, until the last vehicle made it up to the top. Then the baton was passed, and the next caravan would begin its journey down the hill. It was an incredible lesson in group effort and coordination. At one of our way stations along the mountainous route, I overheard an Idaho State Police captain say to a United States Forest Service ranger, "I never saw anything like this outside of the military." In the days that followed, the gathering flourished. There was a fabulous bakery shower system that heated water from the same flames that fueled the ovens by running copper water pipe through the oven's rock walls. Wavy Gravy from the hog farm community led the 4th of July Children's Parade. We had a peacefully, mutually agreed to operating plan worked out with the forest rangers. Council went on each day in the middle of the teepee circle. An all-night full moon celebration brought all the drums and drummers to the rocky-topped mesa above the encampment. A couple from Mexico announced in council that we had been given an invitation to a gathering of all the nations on the continent. They said the native nations were holding a powwow of dancers from all the tribes of North America, and we were being invited to bring a troupe of our own dancers and drummers to participate. I took a half-day's travel in the last car leaving the Idaho gathering site at the tail end of cleanup for me to catch up with dreadlocked Felice's black roadster and black Louis and Yolanda's industrial green bus with the rainbows painted over the wheels. Almost 20 of us were aboard the two vehicles, including my sister Isha, 14 years old, visiting for the summer. She is petite, dark-eyed, with an expressive face and an opinion about everything. She had been living with the Living Theater all her life, traveling the performance circuits of Europe, North Africa, and South America. This caravanning toward the show was nothing new to her. At the little customs house, we present all of our papers while the rest of us just lounge on board. A Canadian official sticks his head inside the bus just for a moment and then clears us all for entry into his country. Cool. All of us entering Canada without even having so much as to talk to the Border Patrol. But then the bus doesn't start. There's no choice but to give it a push. Everyone off the bus! Let's do this as fast and as easily as we can. So off we go, in a stream of dreadlocks, embroidered hippie garb, colored Guatemalan skirts, hair glitter. The customs officials are not so sure why we're disembarking. Then all together we stand up to the rear of the bus and heave to. T-Ohm, that's his name, T-Ohm, calls out, "Hold it! Hold it!" We all stop. "This calls for a picture." He continues while he fumbles in his woven side bag for his camera. He's got it out. And we all begin heaving again. The bus begins to move. T-Ohm snaps the shutter. The engine rumbles into action. And we are all filing back onto the bus and smiling to the officers. They are all waving back. Outside the northern city of Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, on the great Canadian plains, the Assembly of Nations was spreading out its blankets and its village. As we drove the last 50 miles, a terrific thunderstorm shot lightning burst after burst after burst along the vast panoramic horizon of the modern world's wheat basket. The thunder just kept going and going and going. It was the first time I'd ever really heard rolling thunder. In the morning light at the powwow, we parked amid the vast array of motorhomes and teepees. There were more teepee lodges there than I'd ever seen. A little inquiry into where we should set up our camp brought us this story. A couple of our dancers had arrived a few days before us. The night before last, they'd had a bit of a marital dispute in the middle of the night, in the quiet of the entire encampment. They'd had a huge screaming match. They used the F word, the MF word, all the freakity-doing possible cuss words. As one of the native guides explained it, "I think everyone here's seen about all the dancing from your group that they want to see or hear already." We were pointed to a place at the far end of the encampment and told to set up there and that we should please, really, stay. But we had already done all the performing anybody wanted. We drove to the nice open place we were shown, parked vehicles, and began setting up our teepees and tents. Right next to us was the American Indian Movement Camp, the AIM, the AIM camp. These were Native Americans from many different tribes who were activists in the causes of Native people's rights. Just as there was an African American civil rights movement in the 60s, so had there been a smaller but equally motivated civil rights movement among Native Americans. These were the people who had kept with that movement into the 1980s. The racism against Indian peoples is worse than legendary. It's a true genocidal story whose residues are racism, poverty, loss of lands, culture, and traditions. In many parts of Canada, where there are very, very few black people, racism manifested itself toward the Indian peoples. These AIM advocates were coming from causes they had been campaigning for from all over North America. School benefits, voting rights, housing rights, job opportunities. They were coming from many, many different tribes, states, and provinces. They were not happy about us camping next to them. They were not happy that they themselves had been put so far from the center of things either. Nor were they being treated as a recognized tribe. They were a social political movement, it was true, but they were disappointed in the Council of Nations' determination to view them as different from the tribes. And then to have us, the mostly white kids of the rainbow, placed next to them. That seemed to be one more push in the wrong direction. We didn't know what to do, so we just set to work making a good camp. We built a small kitchen and wash area. We set up lean-tos for shade. We stacked firewood and hauled water. The AIM folks just stolidly ignored us. But the kids, yes, the kids, theirs and ours, began to play together. And that broke the ice. Slowly the moms communicated, and by the following day, we had heard their side of the story. This whole huge thing, this whole festival of dancers of all these tribes was a ruse, a front to bring tribal governors together to meet with executives of big oil and gas and coal corporations, to get them to sign over huge contracts for the extraction of minerals and petroleum. This dancing stuff and the drumming and the singing powwow that everybody got paid to come to was like a bone thrown to the elders and spirit keepers of the nations, while their officials signed over countless land, water, and especially energy rights at meetings in the air-conditioned hotels in Saskatchewan. The AIM people were outraged by this. They called it the largest takeaway of Native people's heritage in a generation. The hotel meetings were closed to ordinary tribespeople. And out here on the plains, everyone was just having a good old time at the party paid for by the giant energy corps. What a hoax! What a weaselly hoax! The AIM people wanted to address the crowds at the festivities at the main dance area, but they were not given a performance slot. The next day, while there was dancing going on at the main arena, there was also a meeting and speech-making by elders of many tribes. They had a huge teepee made up of several teepees, all laced together. I've been trying to figure out how to lace 3 teepees or 4 teepees together for 20 years after seeing this. I've never figured out how they did it. They laced them one to the other, to the other, to the other, and it's set up beautifully. These were not the officials of the tribals' governments. These were the traditional wisdom keepers' elders. We took seats at the outer edge and sat listening for hours. Some told their tribe's creation stories. Others told a particular tale to illustrate some lesson, each speaking in turn. It was quiet. In the Saskatchewan summer heat, it was easier just to stay still and be absorbed by the talking and the tales. The AIM folks waited patiently near the back of the great lodge. Close to the end of the meeting, they were recognized to speak by the old ones at the front. Several of the AIM clan stood up. One mapped out the truth about the nature of the powwow we were all drawn into. Sweetheart mineral rights deals being negotiated in town, where the tribal officers are being wined and dined by the executives. And about the environmental degradation that is going to happen to our Mother Earth if we let these unrestrained deals go through. One asked the elders to make a statement to the public through the press, condemning the hotel agreements as fraud. Oh, the elders responded with weary looks. They had seen so many protests before. They talked about how we had to see the brighter side of things, how it was good for all the tribes to come together like this, that this hasn't happened for a very, very long time, how these deals being made would at least bring some jobs and income to impoverished people. The AIM people talked among themselves for a few moments, and then one of them turned to the assembly and made a proposal. He said that as the AIM movement wasn't going to be doing a formal dance, that they would do a 50-mile walk from the powwow site to the provincial jail as their dance, where there was a large percentage of Native American prisoners, all without access to sweat lodge, pipe ceremony, or any of the other vestiges of traditional religion, without access to medicine people of their tribe, and frankly, without access even to basic health care. They were going to walk this walk as their part of the powwow dance in hope of drawing attention to the plight of these poorly treated prisoners. Christians, Protestants, Catholics, Jews all had access to clergy and to religious services in the provincial jails, but Native peoples not allowed. And the natives were the majority population in this joint. The speaker suggested that whoever wishes would join their walk and that they could use the power of this event to shed light on the situation and bring some spiritual relief to their people. I thought it was a brilliant idea, completely appropriate and full of potential to work. We had a day to prepare. We made sandwiches and cookies to snack on along the way. We rounded up broad-brimmed hats for each of us. In the light of dawn, we loaded up day packs, filled our water bottles, and laced up our best walking boots. We went over to the AIM camp as ready as could be. They were in gear too. Looking us over, they said they'd like us to walk behind them. that this was essentially a Native American demonstration, and that was the way it had to be. A couple of the Rainbows weren't so happy about this and were objecting, but I and others spoke up about the basic cause we were supporting, and however the look of the march would be, Native peoples in front, peoples of other races, tribes, religions marching behind in support, however that would look best, we were all together in the cause. We waited for other tribal groups to show up. It was getting clear that not a lot of other people were going to walk this walk along with us. A few folks from different tribes arrived at the AIM camp, one or two at a time. It was time to get going. We set off at a fast clip onto the Blacktop Highway, about 50 of us all together, the AIM people and Native tribes people leading the way, and we a little ways behind. It didn't take long for the sun to rise above that flat open horizon and start to fry, then bake, and finally broil us as it rose slowly above the wheat, drying it on their stalks in the fields all around us for as far as we could see. Moms and dads had kids in backpack carriers and cradle boards. There were some banners and flags being carried at the front. We were setting a blistering clip to get to the prison destination by early evening, hopefully to meet with the news teams there. A press release and leaflet had been printed and were ready to distribute. But first, we had to get there. Felice's car served as one of several support vehicles hauling extra water or letting some of the older marchers or children ride for part of the trip. Sara, where does she get the energy? Is dancing up and down along the line of marchers. Someone is playing a wooden flute, and the haunting sounds whisper by us as we trudge along the roadside. Slowly, one at a time, AIM folks drop back to chat with one or more of us as we walk along. One of the Blackfeet AIM people knows Sonny from Montana. Another was to a couple of rainbow gatherings years before. Even if AIM is not going to be recognized as a tribe, and AIM is surely not going to recognize us as a tribe, at least we were another clan not dancing to the corporation's tune. And we were finding some common ground with these dedicated activists. As we moved into the afternoon, the grueling nature of the walk felt painful, like the heat of the sweat lodge or a fasting day's foodless effects. There's a kinship of compassion that bonds one with all those who are oppressed when the ritual act has some reminder of the suffering of others. This heat, this glistening black asphalt, this is a small ordeal compared to what people denied medical help or religious freedom go through. So on we trudged. The support cars that had gone back to the encampment found people waiting for rides to catch up with the march. So they brought them, and other vehicles followed. The march was growing in numbers. As we approached the prison, there were 200 or 300 of us. We rainbows, black, white, and Hispanic, just about vanished in the crowd. The press was really there too, with cameras and microphones. There was a story behind the story, something going on about real issues, really being brought forward because of the opportunity presented by this Council of Nations. And while the protest did not address the land, mineral, and water takeaways, it did address the very real issue of Native Americans' prison conditions, their neglect, particularly while other prisoners of other races are receiving medical, educational, recreational, and religious benefits. The press did their job. They started investigating independently, confirming the accusations brought to light. The prison system responded merely that they would look into these allegations. The press played on the alternative type of dance this march represented. The result was real change in people's lives. Prisoners, regardless of race, receiving the minimal benefits that taxpayers were already paying for. I'm not saying that suddenly the prisons became nice places, but the legislature in Ottawa took this issue up because of this notice and passed legislation requiring all the prisons in the provinces to treat all the prisoners, regardless of race or religion or background, with equal rights and equal programs. The Native people in Saskatchewan's detention system were newly allowed religious clergy visits, observance of ceremonial days, basic reading and math skills courses, and access to some health care. What a good use of public focus. What a small but meaningful victory. And what an example of an effective demonstration. The object of demonstration is to demonstrate something to a wider public, to take an action that is connected to or symbolic of a situation. By making that action, we educate a wider public to the problem and hopefully to the solution. It's not always a matter of huge numbers of people. It's a matter of how clearly the idea is demonstrated. It's so easy to be disappointed by progressives or radicals' ideas of what a demonstration should do. Demos to close down the XYZ or stop the ABC are almost always disappointments because they don't immediately shut down or stop cold the problem. No, a successful demonstration is one that opens a larger public's eyes so the larger public can take the actions to make change. We shuttled back slowly to the village of nations. It was a good end to a remarkable journey. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.